Hello, everyone. This is A'shanti Gholar, the president of Emerge. And yes, we are back for our second Races to Watch live edition happening on Election Day, where we are talking to some of the amazing organizations that we partner with. And I'm really pumped because we got my girl Amanda and my buddy Ross from Run for Something. And first, kudos to y'all for everything you've done. Amanda, I remember when you called me after the 2016 election and you said, I'm starting this organization called Run for Something. We need more young people, particularly young women, to run for office. What do you think? And I said, fabulous, we're in. And y'all have been amazing partners, helping so many of our alums get across the finish line. So I just first have to salute you both and thank you for everything that you do. And tell everyone a little bit more about Run for Something.
So thank you, A'shanti, for having us on today and for Emerge. You guys are just the best partners, and that so many of the women we work with are also from the Emerge classes. It's just like teamwork makes the dream work, and the dream is working. So thank you. Run for Something recruits and supports young, diverse progressives running for local office. We've been around for almost 4 years because we launched in the ashes of the 2016 election. Since launching almost 4 years ago, we've identified more than 62,000 young people all across the country who've told us they want to run for office, which is bigger than our wildest dreams. Today, we have 525 endorsed candidates on the ballot across 48 states. More than 35 million Americans can vote for a Run for Something candidate today. That class is 56% women, 52% Black, Indigenous people of color, 23% LGBTQ. More than 30 of them are under the age of 25, which is so exciting. They're running for things like city council and school board and library board and mosquito district, as well as more than 60% of them for things like state house and state senate, making sure that we can protect and defend women's right to choose, voting access, criminal justice reform, take a stand up against gerrymandering, which is critical work that state legislatures will be doing in the years to come.
And you hit on so many of the amazing numbers, hugely impressive numbers. They just continue to go up, and that shows there's still that enthusiasm for young people to want to run for office. One of your great endorsed candidates is Alexis Rogers, who's an Emerge alum, and she's actually chair of the Emerge Virginia board. She's running for mayor in Richmond. And can you tell us a little bit more about some of these other exciting candidates that you have? And is one of the things that I do love about Run for Something too is it's all levels of office. It's not just the federal, it's really having those young people have that leadership and power at the state and local level, which we know has the biggest impact on our daily lives.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at, as we go into like to the election day today, like I'm looking at, first of all, like all of the folks in Texas, basically. So like Natalie Hurtado, who's running in the suburbs of Houston, who, you know, like started off like as a waitress at Olive Garden and then like ended up putting herself through school and, you know, like now she's running for office, right? We have folks like Lydia Bean up in the Dallas area who, you know, like started off as a faith organizer. You know, we have like really incredible folks like Joanna Katanak. You know, we just have so many amazing folks, you know, like running in the state of Texas. We only need 9 seats to flip the Texas State House. So that's the thing that we're watching and are going to be really excited about as we go into like tonight and the next couple of days.
And I'm really, really excited, especially about 2 21-year-olds we have running in Michigan, because I think it's so cool that there are these 21-year-old students. Chokwe Pitchford, who's running in Berrien County, is a young Black man. He's so fierce in his vision for what Michigan can be, and is deeply progressive in a way that the Michigan State House absolutely needs. And then Abigail Wheeler, who's a 21-year-old student and a firefighter. We need more emergency responders in state legislatures, who's running to flip a Michigan State House too. But as Ross mentioned, we have hundreds of these amazing candidates across the country, and neither of us could ever pick a favorite.
Oh my gosh. I love that, especially about a young woman firefighter. I was doing a conversation the other day, and someone asked me about, what real impact does having women in office and state legislatures have? And I talked about how, with Nevada being the first female majority state legislature, one of the laws that they passed was compensation for women firefighters for breast, ovarian, and womb cancer. Those weren't covered because it was a predominantly male profession, but now you have more women. And because we had all these women in the state house, they were able to see that. And to run at 21 is amazing. And I tell people all the time, it's something that I love about the new generation is they're not being asked to run. They are just getting up, they see the opportunity, they do it, but we know the barriers still exist. And it's why Run for Something is so important with helping them overcome those barriers. So can you talk a little bit more about some of those barriers and how Run for Something is supporting the candidates?
Yeah, I think a lot of the barriers are really similar to the barriers that you also see for just women and people of color who are running to begin with. I think a lot of the things that young folks go through, are things like people telling you to wait your turn, like you need to get in line, you need more experience, you don't know what you're doing, I think, and even when, and that's just sort of in the political infrastructure that they exist in, right? And then when they're going out and talking to voters, they have the extra hurdle that they have to convince voters, right, that they can do the work. They have to be more prepared. They have to be ready to talk about policy because they know that they're going to get grilled on it. And, a thing that we have found over and over and over again is once our folks tell their stories about why they're running and why they're doing this work, it wins over voters. People love it. And actually, what folks really want right now is a breath of fresh air. Mm-hmm. They want people who are going to go into these offices, who are going to go serve, in government as a public servant and actually get things done. They're not looking for people who are going to go in there and sort of maintain the status quo. So, I think there's so many challenges around fundraising, so many challenges around, just perceptions. And I think a thing that a lot of our candidates are working to do successfully is turn some of those things on their head and make some of those things into strengths.
Absolutely. And earlier, I was talking to one of our guests, and we know almost 100 million Americans have already voted. The enthusiasm is there, and we're also seeing that enthusiasm from young voters because for the past 4 years, we've just been hearing about they're not motivated, they don't care. So what do you think is really motivating young people? And I also have to point out to everyone that Amanda and Ross are amazing political operatives. So before they started the work at Run for Something, so you all know a lot too about voter behavior, particularly with young voters.
Yeah, I think part of this is a credit to the organizing that especially grassroots groups have done across the country consistently for the last 4 years. It certainly started way before 2016, but especially in the last 4 years, grassroots groups across the country who focused on organizing young people, and especially young people of color, have really kept up sustained effort. And that kind of investment over the long haul yields an increased youth turnout in 2018 and now an increased youth turnout in 2020. I also think you can't sleep on the generational trauma that people have inflicted when you grow up doing live shooter drills in schools, and then you see your classmates being gunned down, and you see California on fire, and now your college classes have been canceled and sent home because of the pandemic that the president won't control, and your parents or your loved ones or your partners lose their jobs. It's very personal, and at a moment when there is so much happening, when it's such a big identity shift, to have the political structure define what that shift can look like in the political environment, this is a moment we are creating lifelong voters, both because of the environment and the context, and because of the organizing that organizers are doing on the ground.
Yes. We know that excitement is there. not only for this election, we already have young people talking about running for office in the future. When people ask me, where do I think the next generation of leaders is going to come from? I tell them, look at the young people who have been organizing the protests this summer. Do not get it twisted. Those were all organized by young people. And Attica Scott, state representative of Kentucky, the only Black woman in the Kentucky State House, literally says that those young people are going to be moving from protests into policy and into politics. And we know Run for Something is a great home for all of those young people. So what's next for Run for Something? And what would you tell everyone who's listening who has those young people in their family, in their network, which is everybody, because we all do, to make sure that they're keeping young people engaged and encouraging them to run for something?
Well, Ross should talk about what's next for us. I just want to add one stat, and my favorite number from this year, on top of all the candidates we've endorsed and everyone we've worked with. I said we've had 62,000 people sign up to say they want to run. Nearly 20,000 of that pipeline have come in since March, and most of them have come in since the end of May, since the tragic shooting of George Floyd in Minnesota. That moment galvanized tens of thousands of young people, not just to march, but to think about running for office. So the present feels really bleak, but the future of this leadership class is so bright. And I'm really glad that we're going to be here to help them along the way. Ross? Yeah.
Yeah, a thing that we learned, we did some research on our candidates, and one of the things that we learned is like they didn't run, Donald Trump was a catalyzing force and event in their lives, but he wasn't the reason that they were running. We ask all of our candidates when they come in, like, why are you running? And, just like the overwhelming response from people was about like running to be able to solve a problem that they saw in their community. And so, I think that's like it's a hugely important thing to think about, is that like people aren't just running to run, or like because like they're mad about Donald Trump. They're running because they want to get things done. The other thing that I'll say about this is that, like as like Run for Something moves forward, it's really hard to sort of like think about the future, especially since we don't know what's going to happen with the election that's today. If you haven't already voted, make sure to go vote. But like for us, everything, like our mission, our core mission stays the same. We still need to recruit people to run for office. We still need to support like young, diverse, progressive folks who are running for state and local office, because, over the long term, the Republican Party has made like 30, 40-year investments in these types of races, and we need to keep doing the same thing. And so for us, nothing stops after Election Day. We will continue to support, we will continue to recruit. And on, like for us, like a big focus in 2021 and 2022 is going to be making sure that we are really laser focused on local offices, not just like the state legislative stuff, which is very important. But like, as you know, and as I'm sure a lot of the folks watching know, like local offices are so deeply important. And I think a thing that really is important to remember and realize is that like, Democrats have been in charge of a lot of these large cities for like a long period of time, and yet police are still killing Black people. They're not investing in mental health resources. They're not doing a lot of the things that folks still want to see. And so that's why it's so important to make sure that we're running amazing people, like the folks that come out of the Emerge programs, like folks who are being endorsed by Run for Something, because we need like the best leaders to be running these cities.
We absolutely do. Emerge, we put out our statement standing with Black Americans calling for justice. And we were clear that if our elected leaders aren't going to get things done, we need to replace them. Amanda, Ross, thank you so much. Tell the people, how can they follow Run for Something and get involved?
If you are on Twitter, we are at Run for Something on Twitter. If you're on Instagram, we're at Run for Something Now. I'm Amanda Litman. Ross is Ross Mo Rock. We will Ross Mo Rock, one of those. You can search us and find us. We are all day long going to be sharing stories of our Run for Something candidates, and then starting tonight when polls close, giving you updated results. I promise you, our feeds will be just the brightest, most cheeriest places on the internet, sort of regardless of what happens everywhere else, in part because we know we are going to have hundreds of victories to celebrate over the next coming weeks. And we're really, really pumped to do that with all of you and with our Emerge friends and our partners across the progressive movement.
Definitely. I'm looking forward to it. Run for something, always a bright spot on election day. Amanda, Ross, thank you both so much for joining us. Thank you for everything that you do. And I will see everyone soon for our next Races to Watch Live. Bye, everyone.